In the quiet skies of 1916, a lone aircraft emerged from the shadows of secrecy, promising to change the tide of World War I. It wasn't just another biplane in the Allied arsenal, it was a sleek, revolutionary monoplane, a design so daring that it sent shockwaves through the British aviation community. This is the story of the Bristol M.1C, a marvel of engineering lost in the fog of war, and a mystery of what could have been. The M.1C wasn't just any plane, it was fast, blisteringly fast. At a time when most aircraft struggled to hit 110 miles per hour, this bullet-shaped monoplane roared through the skies at 132 miles per hour. Pilots who had the rare privilege of flying it claimed it was unlike anything they'd ever experienced. But for all its promise, the Bristol Bullet was kept away from the war's most brutal arenas. Why? Was it really because of its high landing speed and limited visibility, as official reports claimed? Or was there something deeper, something the War Office didn't want to admit? Some say superstition, others point to politics, and there's even a rumor involving a high-ranking officer's blunder during a test flight. Before we unravel the web of decisions and biases that sealed the M.1C's fate, let's step back to understand the world in which it was born, a world desperate for air superiority, where innovation often clashed with tradition. But first, if you're as fascinated by untold stories of aviation and history as I am, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It's the best way to keep discovering these forgotten enigmas together. Now, let's dive deeper into the high-stakes game of aerial warfare in 1916 and how the Bristol Bullet promised to rewrite the rules. A world at war and a plane born in defiance. By 1916, the skies over Europe had become a battlefield as fierce as the trenches below. The German Luftstreitkräfte dominated the air with the Fokker-Eindecker, a monoplane equipped with deadly synchronized machine guns. The Allies scrambled for an answer, desperate to reclaim air superiority and save their ground forces from annihilation. Amid this chaos, the Bristol Aeroplane Company made a bold move. Instead of following the biplane trend dominating the era, they turned to a daring new idea, a monoplane fighter. Enter Frank Barnwell, a visionary designer who wasn't afraid to break the mold. Inspired by sleek racing planes of the pre-war years, Barnwell envisioned an aircraft that was faster, more agile, and more efficient than anything the Allies had fielded before. But there was a catch. The project was privately funded, a rarity in a time when government contracts controlled aviation development. While Barnwell and his team saw the monoplane as the future, the British War Office viewed it with skepticism. Pre-war accidents involving poorly designed monoplanes had left a lingering mistrust in the minds of military brass. Despite this, Barnwell pressed on, building the first prototype by July 1916. It was a thing of beauty, with a streamlined fuselage and a distinctive domed propeller spinner that gave it a teardrop profile. Powered by a 110 horsepower Clerget engine, the prototype soared to an impressive 132 miles per hour during its maiden flight. But speed wasn't its only asset. The M.1C climbed quickly and handled with remarkable agility, traits that could tip the scales in favor of the Allies. Yet, even as test flights proved its potential, whispers of resistance began to circulate within the War Office. Why were the British military leaders so hesitant to embrace this groundbreaking aircraft? Officially, they cited its landing speed, 49 miles per hour, as too fast for the makeshift airfields in France. But was this just an excuse? Some suspect the real reason was far more human, fear of the unknown. As the Bristol M.1C prepared for its next phase of testing, tensions ran high. On paper, it had the makings of a war winner. In practice, it faced an uphill battle against prejudice, politics, and perhaps even a curse of its own making. The stakes were clear: either the Bristol Bullet would revolutionize aerial warfare, or it would become just another forgotten prototype, lost in the annals of history. Next, we'll uncover the dramatic twists that sealed the fate of the M.1C and explore the pivotal role it might have played in one of the bloodiest months of the war, Bloody April. The spring of 1917 marked one of the darkest chapters for the Royal Flying Corps. In April alone, infamously known as Bloody April, more than 10% of Britain's operational aircraft were lost to the German Luftstreitkräfte. The skies were dominated by Albatros fighters, which were faster, better armed, and piloted by highly trained German aces. British pilots were outmatched, their morale plummeting as they faced staggering losses. Amid this chaos, rumors spread through the squadrons of a new aircraft being developed back in England, one that could potentially turn the tide of the air war. The Bristol M.1C, with its unmatched speed and maneuverability, seemed like the perfect answer to the Albatros. Pilots pinned their hopes on this sleek monoplane, imagining themselves flying circles around their German adversaries. But instead of being sent to the Western Front, the M.1C was relegated to testing and limited production runs. The War Office claimed the aircraft's high landing speed made it unsuitable for use on the rough and often muddy airfields of France. Yet, pilots couldn't help but notice the hypocrisy. Other aircraft with even higher landing speeds were deployed without hesitation. There's a darker story here, one that points to the fragile egos of high-ranking officers. One version of events suggests that during a test flight, an unnamed officer attempted to land the M.1C and failed spectacularly, resulting in an embarrassing crash. This incident, though minor in the grand scheme, reportedly sealed the plane's fate. The War Office was quick to justify its rejection, but many insiders believed it was an excuse to cover up the officer's incompetence. The timing couldn't have been worse. As the Bristol M.1C sat idle, the Royal Flying Corps faced disaster after disaster in the skies over the Western Front. Had the Bullet been deployed earlier, some speculate it could have at least partially mitigated the carnage of Bloody April. But was the M.1C truly capable of holding its own against the German Albatros D.V or the infamous Fokker triplane? Reports from its later service suggest it might have been. Yet the War Office's unwillingness to take risks with a monoplane design ensured it would never have the chance to prove itself when it mattered most. Next, we'll explore the Bristol Bullet's limited deployment and the surprising success stories that emerged despite the odds. Could this sidelined aircraft have been more than just a footnote in history? Despite the skepticism and resistance from the War Office, the Bristol M.1C did not fade into obscurity entirely. In August 1917, after months of lobbying by its designer Frank Barnwell and others who believed in its potential, an order was placed for 125 aircraft. But this wasn't the victory it appeared to be. The majority of these planes were sent far from the critical battles of the Western Front, assigned instead to secondary theaters like the Middle East and the Balkans. For pilots stationed in these regions, the M.1C proved to be a welcome addition. It was fast, agile, and highly maneuverable, outclassing many of the aircraft it encountered. In the hands of skilled pilots, it quickly earned a reputation as a reliable and deadly fighter. One standout example was Frederick Dudley Travers, a British pilot serving on the Macedonian front. Travers had already proven himself flying the SE.5A, but when he transitioned to the M.1C, he discovered an aircraft that matched his aggressive flying style. In September 1918, Travers scored 5 kills in the Bristol Bullet, including victories over 2 Albatros D.V fighters and a Fokker D.7, the German Air Force's latest and most advanced design. Despite these successes, the Bristol M.1C's deployment numbers remained painfully low. Of the 125 produced, only 33 ever saw frontline service. The rest were used as trainers, their potential never fully realized. The plane's reputation, however, extended beyond the war. Chile, a nation looking to modernize its air force, saw the M.1C as a perfect fit for its rugged terrain. A small number were purchased and used for high-altitude flights across the Andes. One pilot, Dagoberto Godoy, became the first to cross the mountain range in a Bristol M.1C, proving its versatility in conditions far removed from the trenches of Europe. Back on the home front, the aircraft's performance in training roles continued to win admirers, but it was clear by 1918 that the M.1C would never see large-scale use. New biplane designs like the Sopwith Camel and the Bristol F.2 fighter, which fit more comfortably within the War Office's preferences, had taken center stage. Why, then, did the M.1C excel in secondary roles yet fail to earn its rightful place among the Allies' primary fighters? Was it truly a matter of circumstance, or did deeper biases within the military prevent it from receiving the attention it deserved? Next, we'll dive into the legacy of the Bristol Bullet, exploring its influence on post-war aviation and the enduring mystery of what might have been if the War Office had made a different call. As the guns fell silent in 1918, the Bristol M.1C, like many wartime innovations, faced an uncertain future. Its brief and limited service during World War I left questions unanswered, questions that would haunt aviation enthusiasts and historians for decades. But even in peacetime, the aircraft refused to fade into obscurity. The M.1C found a second life in civilian aviation. The Bristol Aeroplane Company, recognizing the potential of its design, repurchased several of the surviving planes destined for scrap. These were refurbished and modified, often equipped with more powerful engines to enhance their performance. Rebranded as sport and racing planes, they dazzled spectators at aerial competitions and airshows, cementing the M.1C's reputation as a speedster. One particularly notable adaptation was the Bristol M.1D, a one-off racing variant powered by a 140-horsepower engine. It won the prestigious Aerial Derby in 1922, demonstrating the enduring excellence of Barnwell's original design. Tragically, its career was cut short later that year when a crash claimed the life of its pilot, ending its racing legacy prematurely. Beyond the United Kingdom, the M.1C's story continued to evolve. Chile's use of the aircraft in high-altitude operations demonstrated its adaptability and resilience. The daring flight across the Andes by Lieutenant Dagoberto Godoy became a symbol of aviation's limitless possibilities. But while the M.1C earned admiration abroad, its legacy at home remained tinged with frustration. Historians and aviation experts have debated for years whether its potential was squandered by the War Office's decisions. Some argue it could have turned the tide during Bloody April, while others believe it was doomed from the start, overshadowed by the rising dominance of biplane designs like the Sopwith Camel and Bristol F.2 fighter. Today, the Bristol M.1C lives on as a symbol of unrealized potential. Only one original aircraft survives, preserved at the Harry Butler Memorial in South Australia. It stands as a testament to what might have been, a relic of an era when innovation was too often stifled by tradition. Replicas of the M.1C, including an airworthy model maintained by the Shuttleworth Collection, continue to inspire aviation enthusiasts at airshows and exhibitions. These replicas offer a glimpse into a world where the Bullet might have taken center stage, showcasing the brilliance of its design and the tragedy of its underutilization. Next, we'll reflect on the enduring mystery of the Bristol Bullet. Was it a victim of its time, or did it fall prey to human error and bias? And could its story hold lessons for modern innovation? The Bristol M.1C stands as one of aviation history's most intriguing what-ifs. A design ahead of its time, it symbolized a bold departure from convention. Yet, its fate was sealed not by its performance but by forces far removed from the battlefield: human bias, bureaucratic inertia, and the reluctance to embrace change in a time of crisis. Was the M.1C a victim of its era, or was its failure the result of preventable mistakes? The War Office's excuses, high landing speed, limited visibility, and distrust of monoplanes, have been scrutinized and debunked over the years. Other aircraft with similar flaws were deployed without hesitation. The real reasons, many argue, were political and personal. The crash during the test flight, combined with deep-seated mistrust of privately funded projects, likely doomed the plane before it had a chance to prove itself. But what if the War Office had taken a chance on the M.1C? Imagine squadrons of Bristol Bullets slicing through the skies over the Western Front, their unmatched speed giving Allied pilots a crucial edge over German fighters. Could the tragedy of Bloody April have been avoided? Might the war have ended sooner with fewer lives lost? These questions, of course, remain unanswered, adding an air of mystery to the Bristol Bullet's legacy. It's this uncertainty that keeps its story alive, inviting debate and speculation among historians and enthusiasts alike. Beyond the unanswered questions, the M.1C offers a powerful lesson about the cost of missed opportunities. It serves as a reminder of what can happen when innovation is stifled by fear and tradition, an issue that resonates even in today's world. Today, the Bristol Bullet is remembered not for what it achieved, but for what it could have achieved. As it soars in the skies of airshows or stands on display in museums, it serves as a symbol of human ingenuity and the importance of embracing bold ideas, even in the face of skepticism. The mystery of the Bristol M.1C may never be fully solved, but its story continues to captivate those who seek the untold and the unexplored. Perhaps that's its greatest legacy, not as a weapon of war, but as a timeless enigma that dares us to imagine what might have been. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the history of the Bristol Bullet. If you enjoyed this tale of mystery, missed potential, and aviation history, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. What are your thoughts? Was the Bristol M.1C's fate inevitable, or could it have been a game changer? Let me know below, and stay tuned for more untold stories of the skies.